In this lesson, we're going to cover the coil tool. I just started up a brand new part file, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a circle. I'm going to create a spring, and what I'm going to do is I'm also going to draw in a line that will be used to revolve the circle around to create the spring. What I could also do is change that line to a center line. I could place in dimensions for this. Let's say it'll have a 20 millimeter radius, and let's give that a value of 5 millimeters. Switch to an isometric view. And now I'm done in the 2D environment. Click on Return. From the Part Features, I'm going to go ahead and click on the Coil tool. So you see that the profile was automatically selected, our closed circle in this case. For the axes, I'm going to select the center line. I could also use, if there was another edge in the part or work axes, or if I needed to, I could select an axis in the origin folder. Now from the dialog box, this is where we're going to define the spring or the coil. So for the size, from the type, select which operation you want. In this case, I'm going to select revolution in height. I'll change the height to 30. The number of revolutions to 3. You could add taper if you wanted to. So let's just change that to 10, see what it looks like. In this case, I'm just going to delete that, put it back to 0. I can also control the ends. So right now they're natural. If I spin this around, see it a little bit easier. If I change that to a flat, this is where you can go back and alter the transition. So if I said it's going to be 120 degrees on the way in with a flat angle of 90, you can see what it's going to look like. I'm just going to change both of those back to 90. And let's go ahead and click OK. Create our coil. You can see how the bottom looks a little bit different than the top. I could go back and edit the coil. And let's change the top to also have a flat up on top. And I'll also change both of those to 90 degrees. Click OK. And that is our coil feature. And of course, everything is linked together here. So if I went back and changed the sketch, let's change it so it's twice the size, the radius. The coil will update as well. For the next portion of the exercise, I'm going to open up a file called coilfeature.ipt. It can be found in your Chapter 8 exercise folder. And what I want to do here is I'm going to create a coil shape going around the cylinder. And I'm going to show a couple different methodologies for us to do that. In this case, I'm going to start off the exact same way that I did in the last section. I'm going to create a 2D sketch. In this case, I'm going to go back and use the origin plane, the XZ. And let's go ahead and right-click, Slice Graphics. So we're going to look right in the middle of that. From the 2D sketch panel, I'm going to come back and click on Project Cut Edges. And from here, let's go and place in a 2-point rectangle. We can dimension that. Let's make it 10 by 5. I'm going to click Return. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to place in a work axis. And we'll use that work axis to revolve the rectangle around to create our coil. So again from the Part Features panel, let's go ahead and click on Coil. So for the profile, I'm going to select the outside rectangle. For the axes, I'm going to select the work axis that we just created. And now we're going to go back and we can do the exact same thing with the coil size. In this case, let's try pitch and height, just so you can see some of the differences here. So if I made that 50, kind of see what it's going to look like. And let's change the height to 50, see what that looks like. Again, the preview is going to show you exactly what you're going to get. In this case, let's go ahead and click OK. You can see I just created that rectangle as a coil feature going up and around the existing cylinder. I'm going to close out of that file, not save the changes, and I'm going to go back and reopen up the exact same file. And there's another tool that's available. If I click under the 3D sketch, from the 3D sketch panel, there's a tool called helical curve. Now from the helical curve for the type, Let's go back and change it to revolution and height. And I'm going to define where the helical is going to be placed by selecting both of the outside circles here to define its location. So for the diameter, let's go back and change that to 50. And for the height, we'll also leave that at 50. We'll change the number of revolutions to 3, and taper will be left at 0. And you can see what the preview is going to do for us here. So if you want to make a change, absolutely go ahead and do that. So what does it look like back at 40? Maybe I want it to be touching. And go ahead and click OK. And then we would do the exact same thing that we did before. I could go back and make an active 2D sketch, or if needed, create a work plane that's going to be at the end of the coil and normal to that coil. Again, I could flip the normal direction, make that my active 2D sketch, place in whatever geometry you need it to. I could also go back and project that geometry. In this case, I'm just going to place in that circle, dimension it. And now I would go back and do the sweep tool, selecting the coil as the geometry. Let's do a cut. And of course I could also go back and if I wanted to run the helical off of the cylinder so it would be nice and even.